Hey there, Rednecks, Preppies, Redneck Preppies. It's me, the Redneck Preppy. How you doing today? Great? Good. Well, I don't class myself as an expert shooter. This, above all else, be true to thyself. I've put more bullets down range than a fair percentage of the population over the years. And in that time, I've learned or employed a few small tricks that I think would help all shooters become just a bit better. None of this stuff is revolutionary. Most of it's been out there for years, but these are the kind of things that maybe you hear about and then forget to actually do. At any rate, let us begin. There are two things I'm guaranteed to see at the range: a guy telling someone that his SKS-45 was never issued, and a shooter using a big old target. Now, I can understand why. If you aren't or don't think you're a particularly good shooter, you want the biggest thing possible you can aim at. But it's also a recipe to only slowly or never improve. I practice the maxim of aim small, miss small with any target that I shoot. If I have a choice between a 12-inch steel plate or an 8-inch steel plate at 200 yards, I always take the latter. When it comes to paper targets, I pick the smallest one that I can see. But even if you use the standard paper targets that most use, you can still push yourself by aiming small. Now, here's a popular target that almost everyone, myself included, uses some variation of. Most people looking at this see 5 aim points. Aim smallers and cheap bastards like myself see 40 aim points there, and depending on what round, distance, and skill the shooter has, up to 60 aim points. And that's just the diamonds. However, the point isn't to save a few cents on paper, it's to aim small. Rather than just aim at one large target, you're aiming at far smaller points on each target. And for some reason, many people find that aiming at smaller targets forces them to focus more and control their bodies even better. Perhaps it's psychological, I don't know. But whatever the reason, I wager that you will find that you shoot better as a result. Heck, I used to shoot 1-inch dots when shooting my CZ457 chambered in .22 long rifle. I did fine. One day though, I made a custom target with dots just under 1/2 inch, and I immediately cut 1/10 of a minute of angle off my group size. I was aiming at smaller targets, but when I missed smaller. As shooters, we all take pride in the tightest groups possible. The problem is that on your standard paper targets, it doesn't take long to obliterate the aiming point when we start stacking bullets. It becomes harder to place your bullets on that particular aim point because you're now aiming at a ragged hole and not a nice tight target. So what's the solution? Well, adjust your scope so that you're aiming at the target spot, but the impacts are occurring just above or below the spot. And that way you're preserving your aiming point, but still getting the groups. The adjustment doesn't have to be much. Just 1 inch or 2 off the point of aim should be enough. This is one of those habits that separates casual plinkers from truly disciplined shooters: calling your shots. And no, I don't mean yelling bullseye after every trigger pull. Calling your shot means this: as soon as the round breaks, you mentally or even verbally note where you think the shot landed on the target. Not where you hope it landed, not where you wanted it to go, but where it actually went, based on what you saw through your sights or the scope the moment the trigger broke. Now, when you first try this, you're going to probably be wildly wrong. You might think it hit high left when it was actually low right, and that's perfectly normal. Your brain and eyes aren't used to tracking those micro movements, especially under recoil. But if you stick with it, 2 important things start happening. Your prediction accuracy improves. That means your sight picture, trigger press, and follow through are becoming more consistent. And second, you start diagnosing problems without needing to check the target. And that's huge. If your front sight dipped just before the shot or you jerk the trigger right, you'll see it, you'll feel it, and eventually you'll call it low left. And when you walk up to check, there it is. And now you're learning and you're building awareness and control. And this becomes even more important when shooting longer distances. Out past 300, 500, 800 yards, you might not see the impact at all. And if you're not calling your shots, you're guessing, and guessing doesn't make hits. Even at 25 yards with a pistol, this habit can sharpen your fundamentals. Shoot a string, call every shot out loud, high center, just right a bull, then walk up and compare. Rinse and repeat. Eventually, your brain and trigger figure sync up in a way that makes you a much better shooter, even when the paper isn't there to prove it. Most people think wind is only something to worry about outdoors, but if you're shooting at an indoor range, especially a long one, check out the ventilation system. Those big HVAC units that suck the smoke and lead dust out, they often also push air downrange in surprisingly consistent and measurable ways. More than a few shooters at 25 yards have tried chasing a left drift on paper, dialing their sights, only to find out later that the air system was pushing their round slightly sideways. Moral of the story, before you start twisting dials or blaming your ammo, shoot a control group and see if the wind is actually coming from the ceiling. And when it comes to wind outdoors, don't be afraid of windy days. You will learn a lot about how the environment can affect a bullet's path. And that is how you learn wind calls. No matter how experienced you are, flinching happens. One of the most brutally honest tools in your kit is the humble dummy round or snap cap. Load it randomly into a magazine with live rounds or have a buddy do it so you don't know where it is. When you hit the dummy round and get a click instead of a bang, your body's reaction will show the truth. Did your muzzle dip? Did your whole hand twitch? That's your flinch exposed in broad daylight. It's not fun to watch on video. Yes, record this, but it's one of the fastest ways to kill bad habits. And there you are, a few Captain Obvious tips that will probably be most useful for newer shooters, but even those of us who've been around a while might pick up something. Well, that's 5 tips. Wait. Here at Redneck Preppy HQ, we don't shortchange our paying customers. Just 5? Here's another one. Why aren't you using dry fire practice? Are you better than Ben Stoger, a 77-time USPSA handgun production champion? Probably not, but he dry fire practices every day. Dry fire practice, that is practicing firearm handling and trigger control without live ammunition, is an effective and safe way to build fundamental shooting skills. It allows you to improve your grip, stance, sight alignment, and trigger discipline without the cost and logistics of live fire sessions. And since there's no recoil, it helps isolate and correct bad habits like flinching or jerking the trigger, which can be hard to detect at the range. In addition to skill development, dry fire practice reinforces muscle memory and it boosts confidence in weapon manipulation, which includes reloads and malfunction drills. Consistent, mindful practice at home leads to smoother and more instinctive movements under pressure. And for both new and experienced shooters, I argue that dry fire is a valuable, low-cost training method that builds proficiency and skill. And you can do this with any firearm. If you're concerned about firing pin damage, like with a rimfire rifle, just use snap caps or dummy rounds. You got no excuse. And there you go. A few suggestions on how to become a better shooter, and they all cost you nothing. I am a river to my people. At any rate, I hope you found today's video to at least be vaguely entertaining and mildly informative. As always, I hope you have great days at the range. Take care, and bye-bye.